This is the Behind the Line podcast, coming to you from the wacky left coast capital of Seattle. News from the Pacific Northwest, the left coast, the U.S., and the world that matters. The stories the MSM won't talk about. Deciphering the truth through all the lies. For more, visit BehindTheLinePodcast.com.
Well, in the wake of the school shooting that occurred at the private school in Tennessee by the trans shooter, the Tennessee Governor, Bill Lee, is proposing a law that would provide armed guard in every private and public school in Tennessee, which I think is a great plan and should be followed across the country. You've got armed guards at pretty much every government institution, building, protecting our politicians and government workers. So why aren't children afforded the same protection when they go to school? And I guarantee you that any of these cowards who commit these school shootings, if they knew that they would have to go up against an armed guard at the school, they wouldn't do it. Because these people are cowards and almost always end up shooting themselves after they've committed their crime. Lee will propose a plan to funnel millions of dollars to public and private schools to beef up security following the mass shooting at a Nashville Christian elementary school. Lee's plan would place an armed school resource officer in every public school and provide funding for private schools to hire armed guards with the same level of training as those in public schools. Private schools would not be forced to join the program. Earlier this week, Tennessee Republicans Senator Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty announced that they will introduce the Safe School Act at the federal level. The legislation seeks to establish a $900 million grant program that will allow both public and private schools to train and hire veterans and former law enforcement officers to serve as school safety officers, hire off-duty law enforcement officers, and provide funding to harden schools and increase physical security. The governor also addressed mental health concerns, adding that his new plan will seek more mental health support through school-based behavioral health liaisons, according to the Tennessean. No kidding, finally somebody is going to admit this mass shooting thing is a mental health issue, not a gun issue. But I guarantee you this federal thing will face opposition from those moronic Democrats. Guaranteed. This all comes in the wake as hundreds of protesters storm the Tennessee Capitol in Nashville, demanding the lawmakers take action to pass gun control. Lee did not specifically mention gun control measures such as red flag laws that would allow the government to take away firearms from those who are found to be at risk to themselves or others. But he did say most practical, thoughtful people believe that individuals who are a threat to themselves or others shouldn't have access to weapons. In my view, that's a practical, thoughtful approach. And I would agree with him. There are lots of Looney Tunes out there that should not have access to guns, clearly. And something needs to be done to address that. But these morons who are screaming for gun control just haven't spent time around criminals or the criminal element, because criminals don't follow laws, and if they want to commit a crime like that, they're going to find a way to still get a gun or use some other weapon to commit the crime. This is a criminal issue. This is a mental health issue, and until that's addressed, this isn't going to change. This isn't going to stop. Gun control doesn't work. Just look at the city of Chicago for an example of gun control. It doesn't work. Here's just a couple headlines from the good old city of Chicago. The weekend of March 20th, 18 shot, 4 killed in gun violence. Weekend of March 27th, 12 shot, 2 fatally in gun violence. Well, that's a gun-free city, folks. That shouldn't be happening. What's going on with that? Until you address the criminal element, which means prosecuting and locking up criminals and gangs and the mental health component to all of this, none of this is going to change. And unfortunately, the Democrats who control these cities don't want to admit that those are the underlying issues. The gun didn't shoot itself. Some Looney Tune nutjob, gang member, or mental person behind that trigger pulled the trigger. And that's what needs to be addressed. Instead, you've got all these Democrats going the opposite way that don't believe in incarceration, don't believe in prosecution, don't believe in consequences. They believe in talking about their feelings and that things will change if they do that. They also just will not talk about the mental health component. Every school in this country should have an armed guard. Schools should have teachers who are armed. It would solve this problem immediately. These cowards who go out and commit these crimes at schools would never do it if they knew they actually had to fight somebody with a gun. They choose those targets because they're soft targets, and nobody's going to fight back, at least for a period of time, and that allows them to do what they're going to do and then kill themselves like the coward they are. We have a lot of sick people in this country. Well, after this Tennessee shooting, of course, all the goofballs have come out of the woodwork about gun control. Amazon sending out an email to its employees saying they stand with transgender people. And you've got this idiot press secretary, Jocelyn Berry, who works for Democratic Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, who posted a tweet suggesting transphobes should be gunned down in the wake of the woman who identified as a transgender killing 6 people at a Christian school in Nashville. She has resigned after posting that tweet. In a statement from the governor's office, it said the governor does not condone violence in any form. This administration holds mutual respect at the forefront of how we engage with one another. The post by the press secretary is not reflective of the values of the administration, the statement added. The governor has received and accepted the resignation of the press secretary. The GIF she posted was from the 1980 film Gloria, showed actress Jenna Rollins wielding 2 pistols and was captioned, "Us when we see transphobes." It was posted Monday, right after the shooting. And Barry had also tweeted earlier, if you work in the progressive community and are transphobic, you are not progressive. It's amazing these nuts get into these high-level government positions, isn't it? Absolute freaking moron. Liberal Looneyville, California has proposed a bill that would take the power to set for schools to set their own curriculum away and instead grant it to the state and potentially steer profits to the wife of Governor Gavin Newsom. Oh, how convenient. More corruption. The purpose of the bill, which would upend the tradition of locally controlled schools, no kidding, is to prevent school boards in conservative areas from cutting out content that they deem objectionable. Well, it's not just the school board. That would be then the majority of the people that happen to live in that area, telling the school board members how they would like them to vote. Which is why we have school board members, which is why we have state representatives and federal representatives to do what the people ask them to do. To vote the way the majority of the people want them to vote. Unless, apparently, you're not going along with the liberal lunatics. Because they don't believe in free thought. State Assemblyman Corey Jackson introduced the bill titled Instructional Materials, Removing Instructional Materials and Curriculum Diversity in February. Last week, the Education Committee set and then canceled a hearing on it. In states such as Virginia, liberal school districts have ignored and even defied the Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin on school issues, and efforts to remove critical race theory from curricula have had little impact since each curriculum is set at the local level. The California bill, by contrast, would force conservative school districts in the state's many rural areas to fall in line behind progressive politicians in Sacramento. The existing law says that school district may exclude from schools and school libraries all books, publications, or papers of a sectarian, partisan, or denominational character. But this bill would change that so that commencing with the 2024 to 25 school year, the governing board of a school district shall only remove books, publications, or papers from schools and school libraries with approval from the state board and in compliance with other procedures developed by the state board. It also says that every instructional material adopted by a governing board shall include proportional and accurate representation of California's diversity in the following categories: race, gender, socioeconomic status, religion, and sexuality. Open the Book's research found that Newsom and his wife are personally responsible for some divisive content in schools and could stand to profit both from the bill's representation provisions and the restrictions on removing content. It found that Jennifer Newsom is founder of a nonprofit called the Representation Project that produces films on social justice topics, then licenses them and accompanying lesson plans to schools for a fee. 2 of the films feature Gavin Newsom. How nice. The films are being used in 5,000 schools in and outside of California, reaching 2.6 million students, according to the Representation Project. Since 2012, the group has received nearly $1.5 million in screening revenue, according to its tax filings, though it's unknown how much came from schools. The nonprofit sent $1.6 million to Girls Club Entertainment, Newsom's for-profit firm. In other words, her husband runs the government funds the schools pay a nonprofit, the nonprofit pays her company, and existing state policies, and now a new bill would further pressure schools to license the films. Auditors at OpenTheBooks.com watched Newsom's movies and read the lesson plans and found sexually explicit images, political boosterism, and something called the gender-bred person. Newsom's film The Mask You Live In features the website addresses of porn sites including Pornhub, Massive Cams, BDSM.xxx, and Brazzers.com. The pornographic images displayed in the film are tagged with descriptions such as domination, face, fuck, kinky couples, and dirty brunettes. Are you fucking kidding me? These are being shown to elementary school age kids. In what fucking world do we think this is okay? Do we allow this to happen in public school? This is what you send your kids to go to school and learn about? If you showed stuff like this to kids in your home, you would go to jail. Do you understand that? That is a crime. But somehow, it's okay to show that same shit in a public school to little kids. Newsom is the same dirtbag who was part of the SVB Bank and petitioned the federal government to pay back the investors, of which he is, of SVB Bank, more than the $250,000 the FDIC would normally insure people for. At the taxpayers, making the taxpayers pick up the bill for that. This guy is one of the most corrupt POSs ever put in office. He has run California into the ground with all these ridiculous bills. His own in-laws moved out of California to get away from his policies. Moved to Florida, in fact. And now we see his wife is just as corrupt. It's disgusting. It pisses me off, in fact. And it should piss you off, too. Especially if you live in California. State government's got no right to tell local school districts how they're going to teach their kids. No right. That's what school boards are for. We've got to start standing up against this trash, people. We have got to start standing up against this garbage. Did you see Biden in the wake of all these tornadoes in the Midwest, giving his little press conference saying, we're going to build back better? Well, here's how he's building back better in the United States. Layoffs among employers based in the United States increased nearly 400% between the first 3 months of last year and this year. Economic turmoil and a desire for increased cost efficiency are primary causes for employers dismissing large shares of their employees, according to a Thursday report from executive outplacement firm Challenger, Gray & Christmas. Layoffs have accordingly risen 396% between the first quarter of 2022 and the first quarter of 2023. We're building it back better, Joe. Good job. Great job with that economy. A report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics says there exist roughly 9.9 million job openings and 5.9 million unemployed individuals across the economy. Basically 2 open positions nearly for every individual seeking work. Go get a job. But people don't want to work. Why is that? Maybe we could look back to the way the government, federal government, and many state governments handled the pandemic by forcing you not to go to work or paying you not to go to work. Telling you you don't have to pay your rent or your bills. Yeah, the government has trained these monkeys to just stay home and not do anything and expect that somebody else is going to pick up the tab. Building it back better, baby. I read stories like this and I have to wonder how it is the Catholic Church is still around. This stuff is going on all over the place with the Catholic Church. And now we've got the story out of Baltimore. More than 150 Catholic priests and others associated with the Archdiocese of Baltimore sexually abused over 600 children and often escaped accountability, according to a long-awaited state report released Wednesday that revealed the scope of abuse spanning 80 years and accused church leaders of decades of cover-ups. 600 kids. One deacon alone admitted to molesting over 100 children. Another priest was allowed to feign hepatitis treatment and make other excuses to avoid facing abuse allegations. Maybe the Catholic Church should think about allowing priests to marry and not be celibate. Obviously, that's causing some problems. That, among many other things, apparently. I just don't know how you can be a part of that church. I just don't know. How do you give money? How do you... I don't know how you do it. That thing is like a cult. And if you're Catholic, I'm sorry. But this is unacceptable. And you see these stories time and time again all across the country, all across the world, of these priests abusing kids. Usually boys. All these priests should be rounded up and thrown in jail at a minimum. Honestly, a firing squad or a rope from a tree would be the best option for those guys. There should be no mercy for people who abuse or hurt children, especially people in positions of authority over them. No mercy. People who do stuff like that, and I was a child sex abuse investigator as a police officer, people who do stuff like that cannot be fixed. They have a screw loose. And no amount of counseling or anything else is going to take that out of them. That's why they need to be removed from society. That's why you see these liberal dumbass courts who let them out repeatedly, and they go back into the community and continue to commit crimes of sexual abuse and violence against people and kids over and over. It's just another hallmark of the Democratic Party to allow these things to go on, to allow these people to commit crimes. When's it going to stop? When are we going to put our foot down on this stuff? What do you think will happen to these priests? Do you think they'll be prosecuted? I think it's highly unlikely. I think that the Catholic Church will be sued yet again and pay out probably billions of dollars, 600 kids, for Christ's sake. But it'll just continue to go on. They'll cover it up. They'll move these guys around and let them continue to work for the church in somewhere else, a different city. It's great this was brought to light. What's going to be done about it? What is going to be done about it? Our society presently does not believe in consequences, does not believe in incarceration, overwhelmingly. If you're listening to this, you probably do, but you see what's going on around. You see what these people are doing. Criminals have all the rights. The sad thing, folks, is this is going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. And I think we all know that. And like I always say, prepare accordingly. The only person looking out for you and yours is you. And I've touched on this little gem of information a few months back, but now the CDC has confirmed that medical codes introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic to show when people are unvaccinated or under-vaccinated for COVID-19 are being used to track people. Top U.S. public health agency has confirmed. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, made the confirmation in emails that the Epoch Times obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request. The CDC has said in documents and public statements that the goal of the new codes in the International Classification of Diseases, ICD, system was to, quote, track people who are not immunized or only partially immunized. The CDC now says it does not have access to the data, but the healthcare systems do. Are you tired of this yet? Are you tired of your government lying to you about pretty much every single thing they do? Are you tired of the corruption? It's everywhere, at every level of government. They tax us into the ground. Just keep raising taxes. They monitor us at every level. You are in a prison. There are no walls or chains, but you are being financially locked up. Your rights are being taken away on a daily basis. The government is going out of its way to make sure there is no way you could ever get ahead in life. And if you don't go along with it or speak out against it, you're some kind of criminal. You're some kind of terrorist, or you're put on a watch list. And unfortunately, I think we all know this is just going to continue to get worse and worse. Prepare accordingly, folks. Prepare accordingly. Finland has joined the NATO military alliance as of Tuesday, dealing a major blow to Russian President Vladimir Putin with a historic realignment of Europe's post-Cold War security landscape triggered by Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The Nordic country's membership doubles Russia's border with the world's biggest security alliance. Finland had adopted neutrality after its defeat by the Soviets in World War II, but its leaders signaled they wanted to join NATO after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine sent a shiver of fear through its neighbors. Russia has warned it would be forced to take retaliatory measures to address what it called security threats created by Finland's membership. It had also warned it would bolster forces near Finland if NATO sends any additional troops or equipment to what its 31st member country. The alliance says it poses no threat to Moscow. Neighboring Sweden, which has avoided military alliances for more than 200 years, has also applied, but objections from NATO members Turkey and Hungary have delayed the process. Earlier, Russia's foreign ministry said Moscow will be forced to take military, technical, and other retaliatory measures to counter the threats to our national security arising from Finland's ascension to NATO. It said Finland's move marks a fundamental change in the situation in Northern Europe, which had previously been one of the most stable regions in the world. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Finland's membership reflects the alliance's anti-Russian course and warned that Moscow will respond depending on what weapons NATO allies place there. But he also sought to play down the impact, noting that Russia has no territorial disputes with Finland. It's not clear what additional military resources Russia could send to the Finnish border. Moscow has deployed the bulk of its most capable military units to Ukraine. Just more juice for Europe, I guess. I mean, honestly, nothing will probably come of it, but it's something for the media to get hyped up about. This thing in Europe is just the latest in a very long stream of wars the U.S. has been involved in. Never-ending wars the U.S. has been involved in. And this is just the beginning of another one of those to suck taxpayers dry, bolster the U.S. military, or deplete the U.S. military, depending on how you look at it. We shouldn't be there. And honestly, this whole thing could have been stopped before it started, while old Biden sat there and watched Russia mass its military for months at the border of Ukraine and did nothing, just watched and waited, while Russia claimed it was just a big training exercise. Everybody knew the truth, but we have an inept Biden administration and U.S. government, so you just add that to the long string of failures of our government and Joe Biden. Two notable elections across the U.S. over the last few days. Brandon Johnson has been elected the new mayor of Chicago in a victory for progressives. It blows my mind that Chicago, I mean, they were choosing from two Democrats, but one of them at least was pro-law enforcement and wanted to fight the extreme crime that's going on in Chicago. The other guy, however, is the typical Democrat who doesn't believe in mass incarceration. Johnson was a teacher and heavily supported by the Chicago Teachers Union, but he argues that instead of investing more in policing and incarceration, the city should focus on mental health treatment, affordable housing for all, and jobs for youth. He has proposed a plan he says will raise $800 million by taxing ultra-rich. Sounds like Gavin Newsom from California. Individuals and businesses, including a per-employee head tax on employers and an additional tax on hotel room stays. So if you're going to visit Chicago, you get to help pay for this. More taxes. That's just what that city needs, is more taxes on hardworking people. It's crazy, Chicago. You had the opportunity to go a different direction. Record high homicides last year. Over almost 800. Almost 800 homicides. It's insane. And yet you vote for the same. Giving homes to people is not going to solve this problem. Addressing crime and gang violence and drugs, and mental health, that will solve the problem. But if you're not addressing the crime, the gangs, it's not going to change. It's going to be the same old thing. And taxing the hell out of the people who are being victimized in that city right now is not going to help the situation either. The other notable case is from Wisconsin, where a Democratic-backed Milwaukee judge won the high-stakes Wisconsin Supreme Court race Tuesday, ensuring liberals will take over majority control of the court for the first time in 15 years, with the fate of the state's abortion ban on the line. It's shocking to me. Maybe it shouldn't be, but you've got crime-ridden cities, including in Wisconsin, all over the country, and people are still voting for these idiot ultra-liberals who don't believe in incarceration, don't believe in police, don't believe in consequences for people. But apparently people's belief in killing unborn children is what guides us to vote for people these days. With everything going on around us, somehow people feel that abortion is like the top issue and where we need to be fighting. Unbelievable. There is a special place in hell for people who kill children. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced that he will run for president. Kennedy is the son of Robert F. Kennedy, a former U.S. Attorney General and U.S. Senator, who was assassinated in 1968 as he ran for president. Kennedy will run on the Democratic ticket. He earned a reputation as an environmental lawyer and best-selling author, but in recent years, interestingly, he has garnered attention for his stance against vaccines. He's very outspoken against all vaccines. He founded a nonprofit organization called the Children's Health Defense, which on its website shares its vision for a world free of childhood chronic health conditions caused by environmental exposures. He started this website because he believes in the link of child autism to child vaccines. He's been very outspoken against COVID vaccines, lockdowns, forced vaccines. He also wrote a book about Fauci and his lies. And of course, the skepticism by Kennedy, even though he's a Democrat and a big environmentalist, has led to bans on social media platforms and a lot of backlash. And he's been written off by his own party pretty much as a loon. He made headlines in 2022 for his comments at an anti-vaccine rally where he accused the nation's leading infectious disease expert, I use that term real loosely, Dr. Anthony Fauci, of orchestrating fascism. Could not be more right about that. I have no plans to vote for a Democrat, but it wouldn't be bad to see somebody, at least with those beliefs, on the other side of the ticket, would it? He may be a Democrat, but you've got to give the guy props for sticking up for the truth. Here's a little story that just shows the ineptitude of our federal agencies. Federal agents reportedly stormed the wrong Boston hotel room and interrogated an unassuming man who happened to be a Delta airline pilot late Tuesday. The FBI's Boston division was assisting the Department of Defense in a training exercise at a hotel in Boston to simulate a situation their personnel might encounter in a deployed environment, according to a statement from the Bureau. At approximately 10 p.m., the FBI said agents were mistakenly sent to the wrong room and detained an individual, not the intended role player, in a fluke blamed on inaccurate information. Sources told the local CBS affiliate that agents woke up the man identified as a Delta Airlines pilot, handcuffed him, interrogated him for close to an hour, and put him in the shower on the 15th floor of the Revere Hotel. The FBI said nobody was injured in the mix-up. Oops. How do you make a mistake like that? Honestly, I was in law enforcement for many years. What idiot or idiots made this mistake? You can't even get an effing training exercise right. I mean, seriously. Next time you're on vacation, are you going to have to worry about some moron federal agent beating your hotel room door down because he's in doing a training exercise and got the wrong room number? This is the lack of intelligence and common sense that lives within the federal government. Yeah, mistakes happen, but you can't make these kind of mistakes in that kind of job. It's unacceptable, and whoever's in charge of that thing should be fired. But, they won't be. They'll just be made a lot of excuses, and they'll probably pay that guy off to go away. It's how our government operates. Hey, happy Passover. If you happen to live in Israel, the way the Lebanese celebrate is by firing dozens of rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israel. Yeah, that just happened. Militants in Lebanon fired 34 rockets over Israel's northern border, according to the Israeli military. 25 of the rockets were shot down by the Iron Dome. 5 more struck Israeli territory, and the rest are still under investigation by the Israeli military. Around the same time, Israel faced a heavy barrage from the north. Terrorists in the Gaza Strip launched rockets to the south. The militants launched 7 rockets that exploded in midair Thursday morning, according to Fox News. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the rocket barrage from Lebanon. Israel, Iran, Syria, the Ukraine, Taiwan, North Korea. Who knows where this thing's going to kick off, but something's coming. The U.S. is just itching to get into another war. One of these places is going to be it. Guaranteed. And in today's stupid story, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation this month awarded a $4.8 million grant to Zelp, which claims its artificial intelligence mask technology for livestock will reduce methane emissions and curb climate change. Oh, you thought it was cow farts? No. It's the methane they expel from their mouth, not their butt. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation this month awarded a $4.8 million grant to a company that sells smart face masks for cows. Zelp, which stands for Zero Emissions Livestock Project, claimed its artificial intelligence mask technology for livestock will reduce methane emissions, considered to be a main greenhouse gas, and curb climate change. Cows and other ruminant animals emit methane in the process of digesting their food. The mask goes around the cow's head and captures the methane gas exhaled by the animal, oxidizing it and then releasing it into the air as carbon dioxide and water vapor, according to Zelp. It also has sensors that continuously collect millions of data points on the animals that are processed by the machine learning algorithms. This is real, folks. This is real. Really stupid. Do you ever just get up in the morning and look around and read stuff like this or hear about stuff like this and wonder how the hell people like this survive from day to day? How do they make it through the day without... I have no idea. If you believe that these cows need to wear masks, you are nuts.
Thank you for listening to the Behind the Line podcast. If you like this broadcast, please like and share it. Please follow us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, Truth Social, Telegram, Gab, Parler, and LinkedIn. You can find our podcast at BehindTheLinePodcast.com, NetNewsNetwork.net, and on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and anywhere podcasts can be found. Thank you for your support.